Fan Showdown, Season 5, Episode 4. Pachow. And today we got some pretty unique designs, some stuff that I haven't really seen before in past episodes. And also I think I should make mention that you might see a name or two that have appeared previously in this season. Now normally I keep it one submission per person per season. However, I thought these designs were so unique that it was worth forgoing that rule. But let me know what you think in the comments down below if you think we should do that in the future. Should we keep it specifically one submission per person per season? Or is it okay if we make an exception if we see something unique or new in this whole series? I'll let you decide. But before we get into all that crazy stuff, let's talk about a design that's based a more conventional design inspired by the automotive world. This is the 993 and it was created by Yukai. Now, if you're a Porsche fan, you might know exactly where this design comes from, but if not, let me explain. In 1994, Porsche released a new 1911, designated internally as the 993. This vehicle was actually pretty revolutionary at the time, and it was quite different than its predecessor, the 964. And according to Porsche, every part on this car was redesigned from the ground up, including the engine. That engine is the legendary Porsche Flat 6, which has been in production since 1963. However, what makes the 993 different and why it's so cherished among the Porsche community is because it was the last 911 produced with an air-cooled Flat 6. So how do you keep an air-cooled 6-cylinder engine cool when you're sitting in traffic on a hot summer day? Well, you use a big old fan, and a pretty cool one if I do say so myself. This is the fan that inspired the 993, created by Yukai, and I'm willing to bet Porsche knows a thing or two when it comes to creating a good fan, especially when you're producing air-cooled engines when the entire rest of the automotive industry is like moved to liquid cooling like years ago. On the original 993, you're gonna notice that there's these cutouts in the hub. Now, I've never seen a 993 fan or worked on one in real life, but from the photos that I've seen, it appears that this fan mounts over the alternator, so I'm gonna guess that these holes were placed in the hub in order to let cool air get to the alternator. Now, Yukai's design has these cutouts to keep his design similar or consistent with the original. However, Yukai made the attempt to make these more functional for our purposes. Rather than just have the cutouts, Yukai added small blades in between each hole, and I thought that was a really good touch. Now, next up, we have Andy and his fan, Angel. Andy said he's an architect by day, specifically a computational design specialist, which means he says he makes cool geometry with Rhino and Grasshopper. Now, Rhino is a CAD software and Grasshopper is a visual programming language, both of which I have zero experience with. At my day job, I use SolidWorks, maybe occasionally CATIA, but I was interested to see what these were all about, so I did a quick Google. I looked at the UI. No! I think I'll stick with SolidWorks for now. It looks just a little crazy. Now, Andy said because he's an architect, he doesn't know anything about fans, but he did what he always does in these situations, and he did a little research and decided to give it his best shot. Andy found two papers, one about blade design of an actual fan, and the other one, the improved efficiency and sound quality of using 11 blades. Now, the article on the 11 blade propeller, I actually found that pretty interesting, and I thought that the Piper Cheyenne that they used to test the 11 blade propeller was kind of funny looking for some reason. But we're always trying to figure out what's the best number of blades to put on our fans. Is it like 10, 12, 11, 9? But according to MT Propeller, the German company that's testing this 11 blade propeller, they've tested both 7 and 9 blade propellers and are now moving to 11 blades. And it's shown promise of developing a low noise, high performance aircraft. Now, I get it, a propeller on an aircraft and a PC fan are not the same thing. However, the A12X25 does use 9 blades. Andy said he did his best to butcher both of these ideas into a singular fan design, and the fan is called the Angel because he said he found out 11 is actually an angel number, and the lore goes 11 represents intuition, sensitivity, and awareness. So maybe all that will play into Andy's advantage for his design. Now, these last two step a little further outside the box. This is the variable, and it was created by MK, and you might recognize the name MK, and that's because he's the one that brought us the Simple 13, which did surprisingly well for the lack of design effort that was required to make it. Now, you might be looking at this new fan thinking, where's the uniqueness? It just looks like an updated Simple 13.
No, not really.
You see those? Those are M3 flathead screws, and each one of these blades is actually mechanically connected to the hub with one of these M3 screws. The reason being is this allows each blade to rotate freely, and what MK is going for here is a fan that can automatically set its own pitch based on its rotational velocity. The idea here is that each blade's pivot axis is at an angle such that the faster the fan spins, the greater the angle of attack. And as the angle of attack gets greater, the more drag is created, which then slows down the fan and reduces the angle of attack. And MK is hoping that this design will be able to automatically find the optimal angle of attack based on the angular velocity to produce the best possible performance. Now, unfortunately, MK said he didn't do any real-world testing, so there's no guarantee that this is going to work, but just the description alone was enough to get me interested in trying it out. Now, I did run into some problems printing out this fan due to how thin the blades were on the trailing edge. Also, once I had it all put together, I did run into some interference issues with the tips of the blades and the fan shroud, but after enough fiddling around, I got it to work, and it seems pretty good. I only wish I had a high-speed camera good enough to be able to see if the blades, if they actually change their pitch angle based on the speed. I know, I'm sad too, but maybe one day we'll have a high-speed camera good enough. I tried to use my smartphone with the super slow-mo setting, but it just wasn't fast enough to see each blade. Now, this last design is born of a tried and true method of creating pressure in everyone's favorite axial compressor, the jet engine. This is the Multistage, and it was created by Fran. The Multistage is set up like a lot of fans from season 4 with an intake side and an exhaust side. However, it's a bit more complicated than what we saw in season 4. The fan itself is comprised of 2 rows of blades, and the intake has a set of stators between the blades and a set of inlet guide vanes out front. The intake is also split in half, and that's just done so I can put the fan shroud together around the blades. Now, in a normal jet engine, there's many rows of rotors and stators that compress the air before it's injected with fuel and ignited. Now, the Multistage only has 2, but this really hasn't been tried in any previous fan design in this series, so
you're a liar!
I thought it'd be very interesting if it actually worked out. Also, because we're pushing air through a radiator, I think this is like the perfect setup for something like this. Now, it did have its issues. Again, the blades were very thin. They did print better than like the variable. However, I do have my concerns that once it's put together and it spins up, that they're gonna deform. And if there's any deformation at all in these blades, they're immediately gonna touch the inlet guide vanes or the stators or the sides, and it's just gonna be, it ain't gonna be good. Now, we might have to RPM limit it just so it doesn't contact the shroud here, but we'll see how it works. Just hold it in place for a minute. So after messing around with it a little bit, it is running smooth now. But man, this one's, yeah, it's gonna be pretty limited on how fast we can actually spin it. As soon as those blades deflect any bit at all, they just run into everything. Now, before we go any further, I think this episode has a pretty good takeaway. Give your blades some meat. Like, it's good to have things thin and light, but if things start to deform under load, it's gonna drastically hinder performance. But let's have a listen. The Angel came in around 47.3 dBA. The Multistage came in around 40 dBA. The 993 came in around 54.5 dBA. The variable came in around 47.4 dBA. Now, the most notable thing of this round of sound testing is the 993. This thing is horrendous to listen to. I don't know how well it comes across on the audio recording, but it's pretty loud, and the frequency of the sound is kind of unbearable. It might be the worst sounding fan I've actually ever heard. I would be curious to know if you own a 993 or have you ever been around a 993 as it's sitting idling. Does the fan in the car sound like that? Because that would be crazy if these are similar, because I think that's a horrible sound and I would not want to listen to that in a cooling fan. But let's see how it moves air around. nothing really to note. They all seem to have pretty good flow patterns, but it's going to come down to who can move the most air through the radiator. The variable came in around 430 feet per minute. The 993 came in around 435 feet per minute. The Multistage came in around 268 feet per minute, and the Angel came in around 485 feet per minute. Placing the Angel in first place, the 993 in second, the variable in third, and the Multistage in fourth. And overall, they finished first, 10th, 11th, and 17th. The Angel actually did exceptionally good in today's testing. It was pretty quiet. The sound wasn't really harsh on the ear. It performed really good, just barely fell short of the A12X25. So I guess technically Andy can call himself an architect by day and a fan wizard by night. So thank you guys all for watching. If you're interested in getting in on the action of the old fan showdown, head down in the description. There'll be links to different resources to figure out how it works. But in a nutshell, you need to send at least your fan designs to thefanshowdown@gmail.com, and then make sure before you make your fan to head over to my Thingiverse account to look at the dimensions. There's a sheet I put together of critical dimensions that need to be met to make sure your fan fits on the A12X25 hub. And I also supplied some templates for you to use, like models to use as templates. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you get subscribed if you want to help out the channel. That'd be great. See you next time.